Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our podcast series Beyond Profit. I am your humble host, Jean-Christian Rendoni, CEO and founder of Symbiosis Infinity Group. And today we're going to talk about a very hot topic, circular fashion opportunities and challenges. There's a lot of movements in terms of regulation, in terms of how the industry and where the industry is growing. And today we're welcoming Churching Young, who is the CEO and founder of We Disrupt Agency. She has been in the field for more than 20 years, and she's an expert in circular fashion. Before I give you the floor, Churching, I'd like to invite everyone to drop us a message where they're coming from, leave a comment. Don't forget to put your LinkedIn if you want to connect with us as well. We'll be happy to continue this conversation after this show. And we're going to start right away with Churching. So Churching, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Nice. Yes.
My favorite topic.
So, Churching, what does circularity really mean to you in the fashion industry if we consider it beyond recycling?
I guess circularity in every industry is about making use of what we already have and looking after everything that we produce or use so that it goes back into the ground. I mean, that's the whole life cycle of any product, not just in fashion, but that's how I see it. Also looking after everything and everybody within that cycle as well.
Okay, but for the people that are not familiar with the term circularity or that are familiar with circularity but in another industry, how would you explain circularity in fashion and textile?
Okay, so I guess for me, it is really looking after your products. It's a whole mindset, it's a system, right? So it's not just one thing. It's not just we have a circular product. It's about a mindset in how we think. Within fashion specifically, how do we design the product? How do we produce the product? How do we grow the resources? And how do we then turn it back into the ground again? And how do we reuse it? So maybe it needs to go to recycling, but then I don't think that is the ultimate solution. So outside of recycling, like you mentioned before, how do we turn it back to another product that we can use again? How do we keep it in the loop? I think that's what recycling in fashion is, and every other product as well.
Yeah, and we see a lot of innovation right now in terms of recycling, not only from textile to textile, but also other material to textile. So where do you think the biggest opportunities lie in terms of transformation in order to bring more, innovation in recycling and therefore circularity in the fashion industry?
It's a very exciting time at the moment with these new regulations happening. And I've been watching this space for, like you say, almost about 20 years. And innovation is a big part of this. And I think right now there's so much innovation within tech, but it's also a lot of in the business models. How do we make it circular? Because we're used to having the linear model in fashion. How do we produce anything? How do we make it make as much profit as possible, and how do we churn out as many products as possible at the end of it, and how do we sell this? So all of the business modeling I think is really interesting at the moment, and also new materials, AI. I think within every area there's some kind of innovation that can actually shift us across to the finishing. There's no finishing line, but we shift it across to real circularity. So we need to really work together on innovating in each area, not just in one area.
Absolutely, and here the business models have a lot of evolution to have. As a conscious business growth advisor, we advise companies also to transition from linear to circular models that we can design and that we can implement. And it doesn't necessarily need to be very complicated, as long as it has a positive impact on the stakeholders that are involved in the ecosystems. So from your perspective, how can small and big brands transition from this linear model to circular model, but while remaining profitable and be able to grow their business?
I think we first of all need to review in how we look at profit. Is it just a monetary profit? Has it got environmental profit? Has it got social profit? So I think there is a rethink in the business model and in the mindset that we do business. Of course, we need to make a financial profit. It goes without saying because it's a business. But I think the way that's just like the first piece we need to do as a business to then convert to a more circular models, to stop thinking in the profit as in profit and losses only financials. So for the bigger businesses, especially, this is what they need to shift from, because they have been set in this linear model for so long in how we produce anything, and how do they increase the profit margins, and then how do we push down the prices in the supply chain to this is the model typically that we've been going through for the last I don't know how many years. So that's for the bigger businesses. And in terms of the smaller businesses, how do they become more circular? Actually, a lot of small businesses already do this. I work with a lot of brands, more innovative, younger brands, especially, who are already within the circular model. So they just have to keep pushing and doing more of what they're doing. And in fact, what they need to do is think more of the commercial sides than the bigger businesses. So we need to like flip the script on that, because the typical circular brands care more about their values, care more about their impact, but sometimes they forget the commercial side. So we need to rebalance that. So we need the bigger businesses to care more about the values, the impact, and we need the smaller brands to shift more to be more competitive within the commercial space. So it needs to rebalance itself there. That's what I think.
Great. Yeah. You're absolutely right. When we need to find a balance between financial performance and impact performance as well. And here, the role of impact measurement is also very important. And it's true that a lot of small businesses are doing great things in terms of circularity, but it's only when you're able to sustain your profit margins and your cash flow and still have an impact, combining your purpose and your profit, that you are able to grow your business and therefore continue having an impact. So this is a very important part. One of the key aspects in the environmental challenges today that touches the financial and the fashion and textile industries are pre-consumer waste and post-consumer waste. We know there's around 92 million tons, right, per year of total waste generated by the textile industry, which is huge, and it ranges from Africa to South America, Europe. It's everywhere. So with the circularity model, how can we utilize both types of waste to be transformed into a valuable resource? And what are the current key gaps that still prevent effective sorting, recycling, and use at a larger scale?
I think sorting. I think a big problem at the moment that we're facing, I mean, I tried to do this 15 years ago when I was running my own brand. I was trying to utilize pre-consumer waste to produce my collections. But it's very difficult to do, one, because the industry is not willing to support manufacturing using waste, because it's difficult and it's time consuming and it's costly. So it's really difficult to do at scale. It's okay to do at a smaller scale for the smaller brands, but I think at scale it's really difficult to do. And for us to be able to scale the usage of this waste, I think we need to find a way of sorting the different kinds of waste that we are leaving behind. What kind of material, what kind of color, what can we use it for? How big are the pieces? And then rethink in how we use it rather than just dumping it. So that starts in really with the factories or the brands, where they have to sort that. And then for post-consumer waste, I think same applies there. If it's just arrives in a bale of mixed use material with buttons and everything there, then it's going to be really difficult to reuse, because it's just not sustainable. It takes too long to process it to become a usable material. Even if we are to recycle it, it needs to be separated, it needs to be sorted. And I think there's a big gap there in that space in how we can sort our waste. And I think it needs to start there. And also, in terms of production and design, everything goes into the same pot, right? So when we're designing our clothes, we really need to look at how do we design it? Is it possible to dismantle it easily? Is it are the buttons, how are they fixed? What kind of materials are we using? All of this needs to be planned out before we even go into production. And once we get into production, then it's easier to sort it out. And then so like everything is like it's got a knock-on effect on everything that we do from the beginning.
Yeah.
But sorting, I think, is a big problem, and I think there's a big gap in there, and also systemizing in how we can be utilizing the waste in general. But that can't be done until we actually effectively sorted everything in terms of size, color, material. All of this needs to be sorted.
Sure, sure. So what essentially you're saying is that it really starts from the design phase of the garment, right? So the brands here and the designers have a big role to play in ensuring that right at the beginning of the chain, garments and all pieces of clothing are thought of in terms of sustainability and reuse or remade and or recycled. So um, to what extent do you think now in terms of education, which is a very important part for for the future of the industry, what do you think is needed to to educate not only the big companies but people that are involved in this industry and people that are looking to make a sustainable impact? What do you think is lacking to really take the new generations of designers and of brand owners to the right mindset towards circularity and sustainability in the textile industry?
I think this goes back, especially for the smaller brands. I mean, the bigger brands have the education, they have the departments. It's kind of easy. They can just hire somebody to do all of this stuff. But a lot of the up and coming smaller brands, they are lacking education in what real circularity, what is that? Because they're so busy sometimes. A lot of the designers are creatives. That's why they came into this industry. So typically they're creatives and they just want to design things. So they're thinking about how do I design beautiful things that everybody's going to buy.
Yeah.
So I think they lack a little bit of education in terms of eco-design. How do we design better? What does real circularity really look like beyond your product? What happens in the supply chain before you start even producing? And what happens to your product after? All of this we need to teach the students. I think in a lot of design schools, that from my experience, they teach design. They touch on sustainability. They might touch on zero waste design or something like this as part of the modules, but it's really not a big focus. And I think we need more focus in that. And the next thing goes back to a previous question that you asked in terms of rebalancing where the smaller brands needs to be is commercialization and marketing. But I would say that because being in marketing myself, like they need to learn how to actually run a sustainable business as well. So I think there is a huge gap within the smaller brands in how they piece together all of these different parts, usually in a very small team. And in fact, we're building I don't know even if you know about this, but we're building a platform to do just that at the moment. So we should be launching in the next few months. So it's about teaching them how to run the smaller brand, how to run a circular brand effectively that can make a huge impact over time, because we need them. Without them, nothing is going to change.
Wow. Congratulations on the platform. And now it is very important in terms of the education. And as Symbiosis Infinity Group, we're very happy to have partnered up with your agency, We Disrupt Agency, to conduct all these wonderful projects in the textile industry. And there will be a lot more news, happy news to come very soon. I'll just take a little moment to thank Dennis and Manoy for saying hello. We'll take some of your questions at the end of the show. So don't hesitate to drop your questions. Tell us where you're from again and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very happy to be able to answer those while we are live. And if we don't have time, we can just take your questions and connect after the show so that we can explain to you what are our thoughts on the particular topics or questions that you have. Now, you mentioned something very interesting earlier, and I think, as conscious entrepreneurs, this is where we have to find the right balance, mixing profit and purpose, impact, and we absolutely need to be able to measure both. So, when it comes to circularity, how much impact do you think circularity truly brings in reducing fashion's carbon footprint, whilst elevating the livelihood of people in communities, for example, most importantly in emerging markets? So here we're looking at a two-sided questions. First, the circularity's impact on the environment, but also the circularity impact on the social and economic elevation of communities in need.
I think for me, I'm actually more interested in the social impact, because we've got to waste already. I mean, the environmental impact, I think we've discussed that over and over again. We're going to reduce the water use, we're going to reduce chemicals, we're going to get rid of waste. It's fairly straightforward. But I think what sometimes we forget is the people behind the waste. What do we do with this? So in an ideal situation, for me, is to utilize that waste and create provide a local livelihood for the community where we locate this waste, if that makes sense. I'm trying to kind of formulate it in like a simple way. So with this waste, we can actually then enable designers within a certain community to create their own brand. Therefore, they create a livelihood for that. We create jobs where we collect the waste, separate the waste, sort the waste, perhaps. Or we could also have educational programs around this waste and enhance the community knowledge around waste. I think I see waste as a very important resource for every community who handles this. So it's kind of a free resource if you think about it. It's not free because it costs a lot of money to process, but it is essentially a free resource that we can use to educate ourselves, create new businesses, create new business models, and also bringing people back into the physical space of fashion. Because if we, let's say, have tailors on the high street that needs to mend this clothing, maybe that's a good way to bring people back into the local community. So I think it has a huge impact if we use the waste right to really change the local communities. I really believe that it can if we do this right, rather than just taking the waste, sending it across to the other side of the world and recycle it. We are ignoring the local communities where they have been kind of dumped with this waste. And I think this is what I find is really exciting. And I think it's very much in line with what you guys do in SIG as well. How do we utilize this waste to create more impact, not just financial impact, but social impact and environmental impact, of course. But this aspect is huge.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And I think that we can expand a little bit on this, on the projects that we're working on together in Benin, where we are working on bringing a circular model, specifically also for post-consumer waste, to be able to bring solutions that empower communities to actually gain a reward from collecting the post-consumer waste and be able to turn it into a recycled fabric that is turned into a recycled garment and then sold to the brands worldwide. And here, the human, like the environment, needs to be at the center of what we do. And here, through our cooperation, we see a lot of opportunities to really increase the livelihood of communities in emerging markets, especially in West Africa, where there is also a big problem with post-consumer waste. And if we give the opportunity and the solutions for these communities to be able to organize themselves around one solution for collection and be able to therefore contribute to their livelihood and the cleaning of the environment, while bringing a lot of circularity in the loop, we believe that this is a great solution to solve a lot of issues and to combine impact and profitability. And at the same time, due to the new APR regulations, the brands have now, at least in the EU, the brands have now no choice, because they are now responsible for their pre-consumer waste and their post-consumer waste. So solutions need to be put together and need to be put forward. And it is through the power of cooperation like SIG and WDA that we can make things happen. So we also call in for everybody that's involved in this space that has ideas, that has the same purpose and the same mission as us, to contact us and share your vision and see how we can really create a sustainable circularity in the fashion industry, and of course beyond that as well. Great. So one important topic, and there's been a lot of movement lately, it's about regulations. So there are new regulations on textile waste in the EU, as we just mentioned, extended producer responsibility (EPR), and there's also an upcoming EU strategy for sustainable and circular textile, which is also very exciting. So that means a lot of shift within the models of companies and brands in the EU and all around the world. So according to you, how can companies prepare and embrace these policies to reshape competition, innovation, and industry growth on the very long term?
I think the key thing here is transparency. We need to really be clear on where everything is coming from and what happens to it before and after. That's like stage number one, right? So we have to stop focusing on just the now and the product and the sales of the product. We really have to think about the whole life cycle of the product. So when we are designing, when we're creating, when we're producing and selling, step one is like, what is this beyond this product? And be aware of this and think in that bigger picture and change the mindset about this product. We can reuse it and then design business models around this. I think there is a huge amount of opportunity, like I said before, within every stage of the supply chain, and all these new amazing business models that is kind of coming up onto the surface now, and it's all bubbling along. Everybody's got lots of different ideas and how to solve this. Is pretty exciting. But I think be transparent, and also for the smaller brands, be diligent with finding out about your supply chain, and be diligent about doing your own research about what you're going to do with your products after. Plan that out now. Don't do that in 2 years' time. Like, step by step, start documenting stuff early. Like, start now already to document things. Don't wait till last minute, because then it's going to be too much and it's going to be overwhelming. This is going to come and you're going to have all of this information. And whilst the regulations are not fully in place yet, this is the time when you practice how to do this. And this is the time when you can experiment and innovate and figure out what actually works, and then do more of that. And then what doesn't work, then you have time to change your supply chain somewhere along the line to make it better. Because in a couple of years' time, you have to have figured all of this out. You might not have the big team or the resources to figure it out then your business is gonna not survive. So I think step by step, think about what you need to do, but do it strategically over time, rather than wait till last minute and think, oh, it's not happening yet. But if you're going to be around in the next few years, start now. Start small, start now. This is what I would suggest that people would do.
Great. Well, I think that's a great advice. I mean, we're entering a new era with a lot of new models and new regulations that are coming up. So, of course, finding the solution is not a short-term thing. You have to really, try things out and see, whatever works and whatever doesn't. And here, brands have a couple of years still until the regulations are going to be in full effect. But time flies, and changing processes, especially when it comes to supply chain, and also to waste management, takes a lot of time to put in place. And here we count on a lot of innovation and solutions to be brought together in order to really bring the necessary adjustments to that these new regulations imply. So we've already seen lately a lot of new regulation that a lot of people like yourself and like us were hoping for. If there's one more piece of legislation and regulation that you would like to see coming up in the next few years, what do you think is very important for governments and regional organizations like the EU to take in terms of regulation to continue within this sustainability and circularity path?
I think one of the key things is maybe it's not a regulation as such, but I think it would be great if we could see more investment into other areas apart from recycling. But there's a huge amount of money going into that, but then all the pre-stages before we get to recycling is kind of dealing with the problem. But why are we not doing allocating some funds for the preventative measures? We see very little of that. So I would love to see more financial support for the prevention. I can't even see the word. Prevention
Yeah.
of this waste happening, right? So that would be a really nice shift. But then I think to enable full circularity to happen, because when we're dealing with just the end product, which is the waste, which they see as a product at the end that they can make some money from, it is not really solving the bigger issue. So whether it's have a regulation that, or maybe the big brands needs to fund something on the other side in the beginning stages. Maybe they fund part of this innovation in the beginning, whether that can be a regulation or not, but it should be done.
Yes, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And it's sticking basically the problem in between brackets to its root cause and not deal with the consequences of the problem. So here, yeah, I would agree with you that the sooner we take this challenge and this issue seriously at the beginning of the chain, as we talked about earlier, like the design phase, for example, and the more sustainable and the easier it will be to control the amount of waste at the end of the chain. And here, of course, there's still a lot of work to be done. But as we discuss when we have our meetings between our two agencies, there is a lot of new tech and new solutions that allow to do this, and more in terms of sorting and collection. Maybe, if you don't mind, we'd like to talk a little bit about the solutions that you've been following in terms of post-consumer waste, like Cycloss, for example, and what impact this will have not only in the fashion and textile industry, but also at the consumer level, because this is an important part of the chain, as consumers are a very important stakeholder within the business environment of the textile industry. First of all, because they are the one buying the garment, so they need to have responsible purchasing habits, and also because they are the one who can actually bring back their clothes and have them recycled. So let us know more about this solution in a few sentences, so that our audience can be aware of the solutions and technology that we have at our disposal at SIG and WDA partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following Cycloss for a little while now, and actually went with them to their kind of global launch a couple of weeks ago, and I was just spent some time with them over last week as well for a couple of days to see how it works and see the responses, and that really get deep into how the tech works. So what Cycloss does, which I find is really exciting, for me, it is probably the best solution that I've seen in the last 20 years that I've been in the industry. And this is in many ways the missing link between all of the different business models I've been experimenting and doing over time. I've had reuse social enterprise, for communities, and I have a zero waste brand. I've done so many different things trying to solve this textile waste issue. I've run 4 or 5 different business models, just testing them out to see how it works. The missing piece is this Cycloss infrastructure, because what it does is it separates identifies the waste into different groups of reuse, repurposing and recycling. So at the moment, a lot of the stuff is manually done, but they are building an AI robot that can do this at scale and fully automated using AI. So they can identify as we put our clothing into the system. You have to scan, you have to take a picture of the clothing, and then their cameras identify what it is. And then everything is from the point of me putting it into the Cycloth recycling box, reuse box, whatever we call it, collection box, is fully trackable from that moment on. And I think that's the one thing that we have missed as well, you know, like up until now, all of the waste we're putting into the waste stream was not trackable. And it was very kind of labor intensive to sort clothing waste. And even a lot of the charity shops and everything, it's very, they dedicate so many hours of their time into sorting their waste. Yeah. And in the end, majority of it is not good fit for resale anyway, and then ends up in the recycling stream. And this is one problem that we had when I was running a community center with a secondhand shop as well. All of our time was dedicated to sorting, rather than actually doing real community work, engaging with the young people, doing educational work. It was like sorting. So Cycloth can really help you sort everything from the point of collection, so that it will go automatically, and it will heavily reduce the manual labor. And also it would reduce the amount of clothing ending up in the recycling stream, and actually allocate clothing that is fit for resale and also for reuse. And I think that's really important. This could be done then automatically, because a lot of the clothes that ends up in a waste stream at the moment, it might be fit for resale or reuse, but you know, the person that was sorting just like, we can't sell it, let's put it into recycling. So that's going to make a big change in how we manage the waste. So I'm really excited about what Cycloth is doing, and then and utilize that to really bring more use to our waste, rather than just recycling it as soon as we can't sort it, don't have the time to sort it. It sits in their cellar, and then, you know, they've got some amazing plans ahead of them. So I'm excited to explore that with them. And
beautiful. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's that. Yeah, it's a very exciting. If you guys haven't watched, haven't come across Cycloth, check it out, because I think that's a very, very good solution. Of course, there is a lot of different strategies around that to make to close the loop fully, but it really begins with the sorting of our waste, and then from then on, it can make its impact.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this exciting innovation and solution with us. And everybody out there that's listening to this and that is interested in knowing more, please don't you contact us, me or Chiching. We'll be happy to send you more information on Cycloth. That WDA has a partnership with Cycloth, and SIG has a partnership with WDA. So we're all on the same boat here to bring innovation when it comes to post-consumer waste, and ensure that the textile waste management benefits from all the technology and the power of AI to transform itself. Because right now new tech and AI are revolutionizing a lot of different industries. A lot of companies are putting this in their processes, and when we use technology for the greater good of the planet and the people, then it really becomes a powerful tool. So I'm very happy to see that. And one of the things that really, when I read the Cycloth presentation that you guys sent me, it was very interesting to see the combination of stakeholders and the business model that's presented. And I thought this was bringing a lot of powerful synergies between NGOs, municipalities, brands, manufacturers, consumers alike. And this is what we like to see, in this circularity. We like to see that a lot of stakeholders are actually involved for the same vision and the same purpose. And here I was very happy to see that the model was very clear, and that in terms of funding as well, because of the new regulations, the brands have the responsibility as well to fund this kind of initiative. That means that the municipalities or NGOs can, benefit and serve as a catalyst to spread this kind of waste management. So when we look at this evolution towards more circularity and more sustainability, what type of partnerships, among the different stakeholders do you think are essential to really have a sustainable circularity in the textile industry? What are the strongest links that need to be put together?
I think Cyclops got it right. I think we need to collaborate across every touch point, every stakeholder that's involved, not just in the production. It's like the farmers, the production, the designers, everybody needs to come together, including the consumers, the municipalities, the communities, the government, the legislations, the funders. Because without one of those things, the chain is broken. We can't have full circularity if the consumers don't understand circularity. We can't have full circularity if we don't look after the farmers. We can't have full circularity if the brands can't design properly. So I think we need each of those pieces in order for full circularity to happen. We can't work in individual silos, which is what we've been doing for the last, I don't know for how long, 10, 15 years. Designers work by themselves. The recyclers pretty much think about recycling. The sorters just sort, but they don't know what to do with their waste. And then the consumers, they are being told that they are doing a bad job in their purchasing behavior because, and the retailers, they just want to sell. So we need to bring everybody together. And that's the only way I believe we can get full circularity. Without that, it's not going to happen. The chain is broken.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And when it comes to circularity and what we call in conscious business growth, stakeholder mapping, this is very important. So every industry, every company needs to first of all map their stakeholders, whether it is consumers, employees, suppliers, and the environment. To make the list short, but there could be an extensive analysis of such stakeholder system. It is only when we identify the right stakeholders with the right positioning in the priority list, and not only the identification, but also establishing a goal. What type of relationship do we want to have with this stakeholder? What type of impact do we want to have? What type of return can we have from improving the sustainability and I would say the impact that we have on such stakeholder, so that it becomes basically a virtuous loop, as we call it at SIG. It's the infinity loop. Once this is created, then the regeneration journey begins, because what it takes is to create the first loop. Once the first loop is created, then it can go on forever. And this is why the premises of establishing your conscious business journey is very important. And whether it is in textile, or whether it is in the food industry, or in the beverage industry, or also in the cosmetic industry, these are all very important processes to take into account. So I fully agree with you that consumers are a key element, and we also think that circularity can have a tremendous impact on suppliers. This is why emphasizing your circularity process on your supply chain is also extremely important. One question that I have, and that I'm sure that a lot of people have in their mind, geographically, we saw a shift of production from countries like Turkey, for example, where the cost used to be competitive with very good quality, towards the southern hemisphere, and especially Western Africa. Not to mention just Benin, but also Nigeria, where there's a lot of major textile corporations that are doing a great job at very competitive prices, while putting their sustainability at the forefront of their processes. In terms of supply chain, where do you see the next frontier for major brands in order to come and source their garments, but not only source them because it's a competitive pricing, but also source them in an ethical and sustainable way by keeping in mind that creating circularity is a very important process to put in place within the supply chain.
I think there's a couple of things. Of course, cost is always going to be a very important part of this. And like you mentioned, places like Benin, West Africa, is attractive at the moment because the production prices are relatively low as we understand it. And then if they're putting sustainability at the forefront of their new developments, that may be an option. But I think we're also seeing lots more local production happening in circularity that sometimes makes sense. It may not make sense for the huge conglomerates or the bigger producers, but I think we are seeing more local production happening
Yeah.
and micro production units being created to really facilitate a more circular model. Because if we have the waste that we want to utilize, let's say in Sweden or in UK, what we're going to do is send it across the other end of the world and then get it sent back as a finished product. So then we have to think about the carbon emission in that journey as well. So every brand needs to ask those questions in terms of volume. Is sometimes it may not just be price, but price for now I think is really attractive to look at somewhere like West Africa. But there are other options depending on where your brand is situated in terms of production. For me, I think the closer to home is going to be better because of all the transport back and forth, and it doesn't make sense to produce the cotton over, I don't know, in Turkey, send it over to Africa, and Africa back to Sweden, and send it out to UK to be sold, and then back to US. We need to think about the product journey as well. So I think it depends a little bit on where your brand is and what your priorities are, because I think there is also no perfect solution for any brands, right? So how price sensitive are you going to be, or what are your main priorities? Is it to stay local maybe, and then you have to find, it's not always easy, but then maybe you have to find a more local producer. And I think over the next few years the business models will change as well. So we're not going to have the linear model of let's create 50,000 units in West Africa because it's cheap and then we sell it across the globe. It's not necessarily going to happen in that way. I see there is a shift in the market. Overproduction is not going to be relevant anymore. Waste creation is not going to be relevant anymore. So how is that going to look in the next few years will be interesting to see.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your vision on that. I think you're right. There needs to be also a balance, some part of the production for mass series and some part of local production as well. And I recently met with Fiona from Untouched World. Untouched World is one of the pioneers brands in sustainability in New Zealand, and she was telling me that they source 93% of their raw material locally because of course it's wool, and apparently in New Zealand there's more sheep than people, so it does make sense for them to source everything locally, which might not be the case for companies that use more regular fabrics, I would say, like based on cotton base, where you also need to be close to the raw material production. And we see here countries like Benin, for example, which is a major producer of cotton in West Africa, is very well positioned because the raw material is right there, so you don't have to ship the raw material somewhere else to be able to produce a fabric and then produce a garment. Yeah. So here there's going to be a lot of evolution and mix on that. We're already 45 minutes in, and I see a couple of questions coming in and a few comments that also popped up. So I'd like to have one last question for you. Especially this one is dedicated to the companies that are starting their sustainability and circularity journey in the textile industry. If you had maybe one or maybe two advice to give to them for these brands, for these small companies that really want to make an impact and really want to create their own brand, and really want to bring circularity at the forefront right from the start, what would be the main advice that you give them?
I think the main advice is keep it small and start there. Start thinking about how you would like to make a difference, because we can't have a perfect brand at this in this currently still linear model. So where would you like to make an impact with your brand in terms of circularity? Is it, do you want to reuse, or do you want to have recycled materials, or how do you see your brand fit within that picture? So be super clear, have that clarity when you're starting out, where you would like to make a difference and why do you want to do this? Because starting a new brand is difficult, right? Like, I've been in that space for the last almost 20 years, and I always feel like a startup, a new brand every time, but it's a really tough space to be in. So you need to be super clear on what is driving you, and then start with one thing, implement one thing in another and another. Don't try to do too much at the same time, because it's not possible within this current system. But then also track everything. Like I said before, you need to really track everything now. You need to make note of how you're doing things, the whole process. Be sure that you're transparent, and only work with transparent partners, because you don't want to backtrack in 2 years' time when your brand is grown and you're like, okay, well, I didn't do my due diligence 2 years ago. Now I'm suffering.
Yeah.
So start small, be transparent, and work with the right partners, I think is what I would suggest. And treat circularity as a kind of a product innovation. It's very much iterative thing. It's not a one thing. It's not like, I'm done with circularity, this is the product, it's done. You have to keep evolving with new technologies coming out, new ideas, but stay diligent with innovating, and also try to think outside of the linear system. Don't just be innovative with your product. Think outside of the linear business model as well, because as long as you're staying within that linear business model, it's not really going to become fully circular. So it kind of clashes in the way you run your business and the way that you see your vision. So you need to really think about it as a whole, especially in the beginning, and have that clarity.
Great advice. And one more thing that I would add, where you talk about starting small and taking step by step, and there is also one very important point when you want to work on your sustainability or conscious business journey is the purpose, right? The brand that is related to the purpose. So, we advise companies that the first thing that they need to do is to find really their purpose, not just in terms of setting your purpose and saying, okay, now I have my purpose, now I move forward. No, but to constantly rethink your purpose as well, because the evolution of purpose can grow rather fast, depending on the growth of your company and depending on your external environment. Now, as a person and as a leader and as a company owner, you need to first of all, understand your own true purpose in order to be able to transmit that to your company's DNA. And it's not only to work with the top leadership, because purpose needs to be embedded in the DNA of each company, whether you're large or small. Of course, when you're a small company, it's easier to spread the word and to make sure that everybody understands what is the company's purpose, what is the company about, what do we do for the world, how do we serve the world, and how do we serve the customer. And I think that with the clarity of purpose comes a lot of good marketing, good strategy, and simply good business. So it's also a very important point.
Yeah, I think clarity that has to be step one. Why am I doing this? And then
why
around that. And I think one thing I would like to add as well, you just reminded me that in terms of marketing, I think communicate your stories and your why. That's super important in everything that we do as a new brand, especially. Don't just think in terms of how many units can I sell if I do this. Don't just sell your products, but actually sell your journey, sell your story, sell your why. And this is the thing that's going to sell any small innovative brand. That's the way the marketing is going, because we also like the transparency. People buy a brand, they don't buy a product. Do not try to compete with a fast fashion t-shirt. You're never going to get there, but you can compete with them in terms of your story, your authenticity, and your connection with your audience. So I think that's important as well.
Well, I love this final message that you're bringing to the world. So I think you're absolutely right, and I think this is a powerful last message to finish this podcast. And I would just like to thank all the people that First of all, there is Manoy. A question from Manoy. How important are policy incentives and cross-industry collaboration in accelerating circular fashion initiatives? I think we touched base on that already, but if you want to answer Manoy directly.
Was there mention of the incentives, or
How important are policy incentives and cross-industry collaboration in accelerating circular fashion initiatives?
it can't happen without? So very important.
Very important. Yes,
Really.
yes. I think we touched based on that during the show, and it is a crucial step for all stakeholders to create synergies as well. Not just, I think, in the fashion industry, but in life as such, and in the business world as well. Having meaningful connections, creating meaningful synergies and powerful synergies that lead us towards the right path and our mission and vision of what life and business should be. I think that from our perspective, it's key to every successful venture, especially when you're on your conscious business journey.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm going to finish by thanking everyone that made comments. There is Denise, there's Manoy, there's Hakan, there's Vikas, there is John, there is Stephanie, and so on. The list goes on. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on this new episode of Beyond Profit. Feel free to reach out to us afterwards. Churching and Jean-Christian Rindoni, you can find us on LinkedIn, We Disrupt Agency and Symbiosis Infinity Group. We'll be happy to take the discussion further. Churching, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure hosting you. And, we take our projects forward, and I'm sure that our collaboration is going to yield a lot of positive impact and positive movement within the textile industry in the near far future.
Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.